Welcome back to the class, everyone. Oppo is officially coming to Galaxy of Heroes today, and as with any character, there are multiple methods to finishing his farm. So what I want to do in today's video is take a deep dive into all those different methods, how long they take to actually complete, and how much each one of them costs. So this video is really meant to be threefold. I want to, number one, talk about the different methods of farming new characters when they come to the game. Number two, how long they take and how much they cost. And then third and finally, we are going to take a look at a comparison at which ones are best depending on your overall spending style. So without further ado, let's talk about the first method that you can do to get a new character right off the bat. And it is through using the gamble packs over and over and over and over again so that you can get the character day one. This is the most expensive way to get a new character and probably isn't one I am going to recommend, but we need to go over it regardless. If you do not know what a gamble pack is, I can show you the Crosshair one that is currently available in game. Typically when a new Marquee character comes out, alongside that Marquee character will come a pack that will look very much like this, where you will have a chance to draw either 5 shards of Crosshair, 7, 10, 12, and so on and so forth. And CG actually gives us the exact percentages for those happening on the right-hand side here. I think they're legally required to do that, but at any rate, we have that information right in front of us that we can actually use to find the actual weighted average for these packs and figure out what, on average, should be the cost for a new Marquee this way. So moving back into our spreadsheet, and if you couldn't tell by now, this is going to be a very math heavy video. But if we go back into our spreadsheet and we plug in all of those numbers having to do with the drop rates and the amount of shards that can come with them, we can find their weighted value, and then we can use their weighted value to find the average drop rate, or the average drop. This really shouldn't be surprising at all. If you've watched any streamer try to whale out on a new character and draw off those gamble packs, they pretty consistently get 7 after 7 after 7, which does come out to be your average. This is going to be important because if you want the character absolutely day one, and we'll talk about why you might want that later, it's going to take you about 30 pulls in total to be able to get all the way up to 265 shards, which is the amount you need after you've already gotten all the free ones that CG gives us off the bat. Meaning that if you do this method, yes, you can do it in one day, but it's going to cost you 39,000 crystals. That number is found by timesing the gamble pack that we just looked at by the amount of packs, which we found that number down here below with 30, which we also found by dividing by 235, because you will also be able to utilize 30 free shards from the special Marquee event. Now, speaking of the special Marquee event, this is the second most expensive way to get a new character when they come out, but it is going to take 7 days instead of 1. Because how the structure of this works, and I can't show you in game right now because there isn't one running, but if this screen right here looks familiar to you, it should be a little bit telling. How this ultimately works is when you unlock a new character, you are able to take them immediately to 3 stars with 15 shards left over. What you have to do from there is continue going in and buying those gamble packs we just referenced, and if you do the math for how many you need to get up to all the way up until 6 stars, you actually can stop spending there. You use the gamble packs, get all the way up to 6 stars, and then you ride out the remaining portion of this event and you get these bonus shards that are currently on screen. Now you do have to be diligent to go back in there every single day because each tier ongoing will reward 5 plus 5 extra for the first time, and that can help bridge the gap because once you utilize all those extra shards, it will allow you to go from 6 stars to 7 stars without ever having to actually buy anything. Now you do have to go for the whole duration of the event, which is 7 days, so it is a little bit slower, but for the most part you are still getting the character right off the bat. And more importantly, one of the things, and this doesn't happen every time, but it does happen often, where we go in and we look at these new Marquee events that are happening, and if you complete the special Marquee portion of it within that first week, you will get a very special datacron specific to that character that cannot be obtained through other means. So yes, it is going to take longer than the 1 day method, but you should be able to utilize this datacron for a good 2 months or so, or 4 months, depending on where it falls in line with everything else. So that is something to note, and why you probably should, depending on your pay or your spending style, should consider the special marquee event. The third option after that is to buy a new character purely through shipments. What are shipments? After a character has been in the game for a number of days, I believe it's actually a few weeks, their shards will start to appear in the featured shipments. This is still an expensive method of going about it. It still costs 80 crystals per shard to be able to get each one of them, and after that it will still take you a couple of weeks to farm it up, because you have to be paying attention to those shipments. Not all the characters, again, immediately go to shipments. It does take some time, although Crosshair's a bad example because he's already in the weekly shipments there. But at any rate, when Oppo first comes out, he will not be available there, which actually leads me to one point in my spreadsheet that I feel that I am going to need to communicate. The amount of time that is listed here is not just the amount of time that it takes to finish one of these methods, but it's also going to include the amount of time it takes to start it. So it doesn't take 45 days to buy a character out of shipments, but it does take 45 days collectively to wait for that character to go to shipments and then to farm them out of there. This is made even more clear by the fact that I'm saying it takes 450 days to go after an accelerated character, when it only takes 230 days to go after a non-accelerated character. The reason for that is you have to wait 365 days for that character to become accelerated. But that is going to be the overall third method, and the math to find that out is actually very easy. We just take the 80 crystal amount that is required per shard, times by 265, because that's the remaining amount of shards we need after we get the 65 free ones from the event, and bada bing, bada boom, 21,000, and then of course it is going to cost us 80 each time, and that number was actually already given to us. So these top three in red here are what I am going to be calling the pay-to-play method of getting a new character. They all kind of sit within their own realm, and the reason why I group them together isn't just because they're top three, but because you really have to be spending money to unlock characters consistently, not one-offs, but consistently this way. So put a pin in that for later if you are considering going after maybe several of these dark side clones. Just because you can do this with Oppo free-to-play might not mean you can do it with all of them. Now, moving on to the second category of methods of farming new characters, and that is using refreshes. Refreshes are significantly cheaper, but first off, again, as we were showing with the others, what are refreshes? When a character, like Omega Fugitive here, actually goes to a node, you can continue to start slow farming her 5 shards a day, but one of the other methods to speed this up is to pay the 25 crystal fee here to get 5 more attempts. You can do this one more time at 50 crystals to get another 5 attempts, giving you a grand total of 15 attempts during each day. This will speed up the process significantly because it will literally go 3 times faster. Although this does come at a toll, and we can find the math here, ultimately, it'll take you about 116 days to do this. Again, that is including having to wait the month and a half or whatever it is for her to actually, or whatever character it is, to actually go to the node. We can then do the math knowing that you will get about 4.95 shards on average per day, needing 265, and then each one of those days is going to cost you about 75 crystals from doing those 2 refreshes. This is not factoring in having to refresh more energy, as normal energy has been in a really high supply of lately, especially with everything that is going on with the web store. But at any rate, it'll cost you about 4,000 crystals, and different from the 3 previous ones we talked about, this actually is going to be free to play consistent, depending on exactly where you are. If you're in a position like I am, which is probably rare, being up in Kyber 1, where I'm getting a very large crystal income every single month, I can do away with 4,000 crystals for every single marquee character. Not everybody's in that position. But you don't have to go all the way with double refreshing. You can also just single refresh. So much in the sense that we just showed here, that after the 25 crystals are gone, a 50 appears, you can just stop at the 25 crystal amount and only be trying to farm 10 shards a day, which will ultimately actually result in 3 on average. Now, this will drag out the process a little bit longer, but at the same time, you should be able to get 3 shards a day, which if we times that by 25, it ends up costing you about 2,000 extra crystals to farm this character faster than no refreshes would be. And that gets us to our final category, or sub-final category here, of no refreshes. And this is what most people are probably used to, slow farming, which is actually what I'm doing with Omega right now, where all I'm doing is going in, doing my 5 attempts, getting the 1 or 2 shards that drop, and then moving on with my day, coming back the next day, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And this method is going to ultimately net out very few shards, again 1 or 2, and it's going to ultimately take me 230 days from the launch day of that character. So Omega didn't come out yesterday, she came out a few months ago, but now that I waited this long and did nothing, and then I have also not refreshing, it's ultimately going to take me a very large chunk of time to get there, but I am essentially going to be spending no extra crystals in the entire process. Now, accelerated is the exact same thing, but waiting until that character goes to double drops. And if you're not familiar with what that is, after a character has been in the game for about a year, whenever CG can actually go about and double their shards, and you go and try to, let's pick a character, Tarful. I want to farm Tarful, and I go to his node. I won't find 1 shard of Tarful. I will find 2 shards of Tarful. And that is, again, consistent with any Marquee character, not legendaries or other things like that, but their shards will eventually double. So you can get the character for a better rate, but at the same time, again, you have to wait that really expensive 365 days, which is the current game is working. CG really wants you to go after the character as soon as possible. So it is technically cheaper, but it also costs you pretty much the same amount either way. Now, for the third and final part of the video, I do want to talk about analyzing what each one of these gets you. Now, the Gamble Pack does actually get you something really interesting. If we go into GAC right now, there is not currently a GAC, and this is being filmed the night before it's premiering, so don't freak out if you think this looks different than your game, because it should. My GAC is not starting for another 18 hours. The really sneaky thing that CG did, Oppo's Marquee event starts in less than 15. What this means is, if I wanted to, or if anyone wants to, that Marquee event will start before GAC, and if you just want to drop, what was our magic number there, 39,000 crystals, and immediately go after or get those shards from the Gamble Packs, and then also progressing along the line and getting the extra 30 free shards, the free shards you get for going after the Gamble Packs, you can get him with his bespoke Datacron on day 1, also assuming you have the materials to take it up. So a very, very expensive endeavor, but it actually does make going after characters day 1 have some semblance of an advantage. I don't love this. This is definitely arguably more Kraken than it is even whale territory, but I just want to say that there is actually one reason out there, at least in these types of cases, where doing that isn't just completely useless and pointless. Now, that being said, the special Marquee event where you're actually taking advantage of those shards that are coming out every single day is probably the best pay-to-play method that you can take to be able to get the character. And what I wanted to show here is that you are getting the shards at a 39 or 38% discount by doing it that way, because you're taking essentially those 6 days to be able to get all those free shards that you wouldn't otherwise, or that you would otherwise have to pay for, which is a really big deal. And the only thing you're really missing out on, other than maybe if you're a content creator making content about that new character, is that very first week. And that is assuming they had a specialized Datacron, and it's also assuming that you had the materials to take that Datacron up. So yeah, special Marquee is probably the best way to go. I really don't like Shipments that much. I mean, I'm not really a spender, so maybe I don't have any right to speak here, but Shipments just don't make any sense to me. Their discount is not that much between the special Marquee event and that, and the time span is huge. Having to wait for them to go to Shipments and then constantly having to check, constantly having to buy. Yeah, it is 3,000 crystals less cheaper, but at the same time, you missed out on probably one of the best parts about that new Marquee coming out, being the Datacron and the several weeks of getting to use them. So as far as pay-to-play methods go, it's probably what I'm going to rank in the last spot. Now, when it comes to free-to-play methods, I'm going to have to rank double refreshing as the best method. You just get the character, not instantly, but so much faster than the other two methods, and the price increase really isn't that much. We see a giant decrease in price from shipments to double refreshing, and then even from double refreshing, a decent price decrease to single refreshing. So both these methods are obviously valid. It's going to depend on what your overall crystal income looks like. Maybe you don't have 4,000 crystals that you can just drop on every new Marquee. Maybe you can only do it some of the time, like when there's Dark Side clones coming out that you really like because you want Lord Vader to actually be with a clone team and not with what seems kind of like random characters like Maul. But at any rate, these are the other methods. I really am not a huge fan of waiting for characters to become accelerated unless you're in the very beginning and you're also really not doing Lightspeed bundles. Because if you are doing Lightspeed bundles, maybe then you can kind of cross off those older characters because you just got them for $10, $20, $30, whatever. And you can actually focus on farming some newer characters and you don't actually have to wait a full year for them to go to get better value out of them. Because again, how CG kind of has things set up right now, you want to have the character as soon as possible for either the new raid or a new event or a new legendary or what have you. So that ultimately is going to be the video. These are your 7 different methods of getting a new Marquee character, and hope you all do well and have good rolls in this coming Oppo event. So thank you guys for watching. Until the next time, stay awesome.